The game that I'm going to show you today is a game between me and one of the chess club members named Nicholas. Now, when I was inputting the game, I put Nicholas's name up here on the top and put mine down here at the bottom, but I was actually black and Nicholas was white. And as I get more used to this app, I'll be making less mistakes like this. But as you can see, Nicholas started off the game by moving his e-pawn up 2 squares, which is a perfect way to start off a chess game. Now, I've told chess players that the best way to respond to one of the middle pawns going up 2 is by moving the corresponding pawn up 2 moves as well. But since Nicholas is a really good player, I decided to try something different with him, and I moved the c-pawn up 2. And this opening for black is called the Sicilian. And the Sicilian is a pretty good defense for black. It's kind of a, I don't want to say it's passive, but it's hard for white to penetrate into this area. And it kind of makes for a long and somewhat complex chess game. Now you can see Nicholas decided to move his f-pawn up 2, which is a type of opening called the King's Indian. Or not the King's Indian, but the King's Gambit. And I don't recommend this for chess players, especially younger chess players. And you can see the arrow was red. If I press the suggestions button, you'll see 4 different moves that Nicholas could have made. The most common is moving the knight here to f3, and it's a pretty conservative and pretty safe move. But Nicholas chose to try something different. And so he moved that one up. As you can see, I developed my knight. And you can also see that there's a red. Oh, now there's a blue, the arrow is turned blue. What's happening is that the computer or the memory in this app is going through and calculating all the different possible moves. So if you see the arrow changing colors from blue to red, that just means that the app is calculating the best moves. And the longer it calculates, the deeper it can see into a position. So what might start off as not a very good move, as shown by a red arrow, could actually become a little bit better as the computer thinks about it. Most likely those moves are probably number 4 moves out of the 4 that the app is suggesting. But I just did a basic developing move. It's always a good idea to develop a knight right after you develop one of your pawns. Nicholas develops a knight, I develop a knight, and I recommend to my chess players not to start an attack too early in the game. But Nicholas went ahead and decided to attack me right away, and you can see that the arrow is blue, so it's not a bad move. It puts what's called a tempo on my knight. A tempo means that a piece is moved and then the person has to respond to it or lose a piece. So he puts a tempo on my knight, and I tell all the chess players, whenever your opponent makes a move, ask yourself, what's the threat? And the threat is his pawn taking my knight, and I don't want that to happen. So I have to stop what I'm doing in order to take care of this knight. Again, that's what a tempo is in chess. You kind of have to stop your plan and take time away to protect yourself from being taken. Nicholas develops a pawn, I develop a pawn right here. Now, I kind of set this up because I don't like this pawn here. And anytime there's a piece that gets on my side of the board, I really don't like it, and I really want to stop it. And so I put this pawn here in hopes of either blocking his movement or hoping that he would eventually take me. You'll notice at first this arrow was red, but now it's blue. So it is a top 4 move, and so we'll play through it. And what I did is I decided not to capture back. I figure with this pawn here, I was either going to take it with my queen or I was going to take it with my bishop eventually. Oh, now you see that the arrow just turned red. So after deeper calculations, it probably wasn't as good of a move. So if I press right here, it actually looks like taking that was even better. But it looks like the best move of all would have been to take the queen out and have the queen take that piece right there. I'm not a big fan of taking my queen out too early in the game, and the more you play chess, the more there are certain things that you like to do and things that you don't like to do. I personally don't like to take my queen out too much. too early in the game, I should say. So I went ahead and moved my pawn up 1. Nicholas does another attack, so I have to ask myself, what's the threat? I've got to take care of this threat before I do anything else. So I move that knight out of the way. Nicholas continues to develop. I go ahead and take the pawn, developing another piece. Nicholas goes ahead and develops another piece. I go ahead and I castle, and then Nicholas develops his queen. And I've taught the chess players about the opening. The opening is the first 10 or so moves of a chess game. And the whole point of your opening is to try to get your powerful chess pieces out into the battlefield. I have 2 knights and a bishop out into the gameplay. Nicholas has 2 knights, a bishop, and his queen out into the game. I've castled, which is considered a developing move. So we're about even as far as the development in the opening is concerned. But now I decide to go into the middle game. And the middle game is where you start coming up with strategies on how you're going to start attacking your opponent. And you can see my first move was moving the rook over here, 1 square. And the reason why I did that was to set up an X-ray attack, and that's one of the things we've been talking in Chess Club the past couple weeks. My rook here, if it could see through this pawn and see through this bishop, would be attacking this king. And so when I made that move, I had that in mind, that I would eventually go ahead and do something. It's called a pin. Whenever there's an enemy piece in between a king and one of your pieces, it's called a pin. And I eventually take advantage of that. Nicholas here, on his next move, moves his knight to this square. But you can see this is a red arrow. And as a general rule in chess, you want to develop all of your pieces, or at least have a plan for an attack. You don't want to attack too early, and maybe I was a little bit early here, but I kind of had a good feeling about this. But Nicholas kind of wasted some time by moving his knight there, and if we look at the suggestions, his best move was actually this pawn moving up 1. It's kind of a quiet move, a passive move, although over here it looks like it was okay to move the knight over here. Because it is putting an attack against the bishop. I guess that's the reason why that was an okay move, was to put it there. This move really doesn't do anything. It doesn't threaten any of my pieces, doesn't make me scared, doesn't make me worried, which is probably the reason why it didn't get a blue arrow. Now, I'm going to start taking advantage of this pin. I move my pawn up 1, which you can see is a blue arrow. That was a good move. And Nicholas makes another mistake. Rather than taking care of this right here, he tries to attack again. And again, I've got this bishop pinned, which is exactly what I end up doing. I end up taking his pawn, but it doesn't look like that was a good move for me. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I could have put a tempo on Nicholas here by moving my knight here and attacking his queen, but I didn't see that. I was so caught up into this move right here that I didn't think of anything else. And that's something else that's important in chess. It's called mechanical thinking. And mechanical thinking just means that you're so caught up in your idea that you forget to take the time to look at other moves on the chessboard, which would be a lot better. And again, I have a tendency to be a mechanical thinker. I get caught in one idea and one plan and don't consider my options, and it's part of the reason why I'm not a very good chess player. But I went ahead and took his pawn, and now I have this pin, which is what I was looking for in the first place, plus I'm attacking his bishop with my pawn, which is called a pile-on. So I have a pin, and I'm piling on the pin. I'm going to take this piece, and Nicholas really doesn't have any way to save this piece right here. It's going to go down, or it could mess up his position. So he goes ahead and castles, and you can see that that was actually a pretty good move by him. And then I take his bishop. And you can see Nicholas has 1 point, and I have 5 points. So I'm ahead 5-2. Nicholas develops another piece right out here. And then I start getting a little bit fancy because I really like playing with tactics. I really like using middle games. And as you can see, I move my knight right here. It was red, then it went blue, then it went red again. But my thought was, if I move here, I can attack his queen and his bishop at the same time. That's called a fork. One piece attacking two other pieces at the same time. And it looks like there's like something right here. It looks like this is called a hanging piece, and it looks like Nicholas could, but I've got my knight right here. So I'm not really sure what that means. As I learn about this app a little bit more, I'll probably get a little bit better at doing it. But let me see what some of the better moves are. It looks like moving my bishop right here was a much better move. Probably the only good move that I had, and I'm guessing it's because it attacks this knight right here and forces the knight to have to move to a place that it doesn't want to move. But I went ahead, because I like tactics so much, that I went ahead and created a fork. Nicholas moved his queen out of the way, and then you can see, again, I like tactics. It wasn't well, it's going back and forth between blue and red. So sometimes the app thinks it's a good move and sometimes it doesn't. But the reason why I moved my bishop there was because of another tactic. This is a pin against, it's not a great pin, but the queen can't take my bishop because the knight's backing it up. And if the queen moves out of the way, then I can go ahead and take the rook. Bishop is worth 3 points, rook is worth 5 points. I'm going to end up getting more points out of the exchange in that move. So he moves out of the way, and this is a big mistake that I made. And again, when I put these lessons together, keep in mind that I am not a great chess player. I make tons of mistakes. And this is one of my big mistakes. You can see that I moved my knight right here to take the bishop. And the reason why I did that, I was so excited because Nicholas put his king on this square and his queen on that square. If that rook wasn't there, I could move my knight here and have what's called a royal fork, where I'm attacking his king and his queen at the same time, and I would have traded my knight for Nicholas's queen. Thing is, though, I wasn't paying enough attention and forgot that that rook was right there. So it could have been a good move, but I just wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention. So I went there, and Nicholas took me back. Unfortunately, being a chess coach and working with so many kids, there's a lot of questions and a lot of things going on. And so there were a lot of distractions from this point on in the game, and so I wasn't able to really concentrate and play the game that I wanted to. But Nicholas and I are going to continue this game, and hopefully we'll have some more parts to it that we can that I can show you and learn from. So I hope you have learned a few things from this chess game about the opening, just basically developing your pieces and getting them into the middle of the action. And then in the middle game, using attacks, forks, pins, all those kinds of things, because it's really the middle game that makes great chess players.